Welcome to my channel Techify with Adil. So here today in our video we will be discussing about Azure Directory Services. So this will be under our next topic in the journey of Azure Fundamentals study, Azure Identity, Access and Security. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do subscribe, like and share. So Azure Active Directories. So usually we the desktop engineers or the infra support team people, we have a very familiar term called Active Directory. So the same directory service were used in the cloud is called as Azure Active Directory. So now recently the Azure Microsoft has retermed it as Microsoft Entra ID. So you'll be seeing about Microsoft Entra in this video. So Microsoft Entra ID is a directory service that enables you to sign in and access both Microsoft cloud applications and cloud applications that you develop. Microsoft Entra ID can also help you maintain your on-premises Active Directory deployment. For on-premises environment, Active Directory running on Windows Server provides an identity and access management service that's managed by your organization. Microsoft Entra ID is a Microsoft cloud-based identity and access management service. So with Microsoft Entra ID, you control the identity control accounts, but Microsoft ensures that service is available globally. If you have worked with Active Directory, Microsoft Entra ID will be familiar. So it's similar, just it's in the cloud service. So when you secure identities on premises with Active Directory, Microsoft doesn't monitor sign-in attempts. When you connect Active Directory with Microsoft Entra ID, Microsoft can help protect you by detecting suspicious sign-in attempts at no extra cost. For example, Microsoft Entra ID can detect sign-in attempts from unexpected location or unknown devices. So we can have conditions like this. So if it's from an unknown, if it's a suspicious sign-in attempt, then it will help to detect that. So what Microsoft Entra ID is used for? So for usually the IT administrators will be using it. So IT administrators will be using it to control access to applications and resources based on their business requirement. Then for app developers, so developers can use Microsoft Entra ID to provide a standard-based approach for adding functionality to applications that they build, such as adding SSO like single sign-on functionality to an app or enabling an app to work with users' existing credentials. Then for normal users can manage their identities and take maintenance actions like self-service, password reset. So online service subscribers, for my M365 Office, Azure and Microsoft Dynamics CRM online subscribers are already using the Microsoft Entra ID to authenticate into their account. So it has a very drastical wide range of users are using this Microsoft Entra ID. So Microsoft Entra ID provides services such as authentication, SSO, then application management and device management. So we will see each of them. So this includes verifying identity to applications and resources. It also includes providing functionality such as self-service, password reset, multi-factor authentication, we call it MFA, a custom list of banned passwords. So custom list of banned passwords meaning like when you set up a list of banned passwords, so the user will not be able to use it. So like very simple passwords like 123 password, all this kind of simple passwords, we can restrict the users from using those kind of easy passwords. And smart lockout services. Single sign-on enables you to remember only one username and one password to access multiple applications. A single identity is tied to a user, which simplifies the security model. As users change role or leave an organization, access modifications are tied to that identity, which greatly reduces the effort needed to change or disable the accounts. So application management. You can manage your cloud and on-premises apps by using the Entra ID. So features like application proxy, SaaS applications, and My Apps portal and single sign-on provide a better user experience. Then device management. So along with accounts for individual people, Microsoft Entra ID supports the registration of devices as well. So registration enables devices to be managed through tools like Microsoft Intune. So when you want to use Microsoft Intune, so that will be tied to your Microsoft Entra ID. This is the directory we will be using in the Microsoft Intune as well. So it also allows for device based conditional access policies to restrict access attempts to only those coming from known devices regardless of the requesting user account, even though known user is requesting for an access but it's from an unknown device, the access can be restricted using a conditional access policy that's made possible by using Microsoft Entra ID. Next, connecting the on-premise AD with Microsoft Entra ID. So if you had an on-premises environment running Active Directory and cloud deployment used Microsoft Entra ID, you would need to maintain two identity sets, like for on-premises one and for the cloud one. So you can connect Active Directory with Microsoft Entra ID, so enabling a consistent identity experience between cloud and on-premises. So one method of connecting the Microsoft Entra ID with your on-premises AD is using a Microsoft Entra Connect. So Microsoft Entra Connect synchronizes user identities between on-premises Active Directory and Microsoft Entra ID. So Microsoft Entra ID synchronizes changes between both identity systems. So you can use features like SSO, MFA, and self-service password reset under both systems. So Microsoft Entra Domain Services. Microsoft Entra Domain Services is a service that provides managed domain services such as domain joining, group policies, then LDAP and Kerberos NTLM authentication. So all these topics will be very familiar for whoever been worked with AD before. So normal our on-prem AD, we will be creating we'll be joining the laptops, desktops to the domain, then we create the group policies, then we have this directory access protocol, then Kerberos, all these things the same we can use on the cloud by using this service called Microsoft Entra Domain Service. So just like Microsoft Entra ID lets you use directory services without having to maintain the infrastructure supporting it. With Microsoft Entra Domain Services, you get the benefit of domain services without need to deploy, manage, and patch domain controllers in the cloud, because all these options, all this services we get in the on-premises from the domain controller. So have a domain controller, we need to maintain the server, patch, and we have to do all the physical device maintenance. So when it comes from the cloud as a service, we no need to do all the physical maintenance. So the physical maintenance is all managed by the Azure. So we just we will be just utilizing the service. So Microsoft Entra Domain Services Managed Domain lets you run a legacy applications in the cloud that can be modern authentication methods, or where you don't want Active Directory lookups to always go back to an on-premises ADDS environment. So Microsoft Entra Domain Service not only allows you to use the applications that suppose the SSO kind of modern authentication, it also lets you use legacy applications as well. So you can lift and shift those legacy applications from your on-premises environment into managed domain without needing to manage the ADDS environment in the cloud. So Microsoft Entra Domain Services integrates with your existing Microsoft Entra tenant. This integration lets users sign into services and applications connected to the managed domain using their existing credentials. So that's very important. We already been using a credential, so it will help you to integrate with the existing credentials. There will be no separate credentials created for this. You can also use existing groups and user accounts to secure access to the resources. These features provide a smooth lift and shift of the on-premises resources to the Azure. So we can use the existing credential, we can use the existing groups and user accounts for the resources, which will give a similar experience from the user's point of view. When you create a Microsoft Entra Domain Services managed domain, you define a unique namespace. This namespace is the domain name. So 2 Windows Server domain controllers are then deployed into your selected Azure region. This deployment of DCs is known as replica set. So you don't need to manage, configure and update these DCs. The Azure platform handles the DCs as a part of the managed domain, including backups and encryption at rest using Azure Disk Encryption. Okay, a managed domain is configured to perform a one-way synchronization from Microsoft Entra ID to Microsoft Entra Domain Services. So you can create a resource directly in the managed domain, but they aren't synchronized back to the Microsoft Entra ID. In a hybrid environment, when an on-premises ADDS environment, Microsoft Entra Connect synchronizes identity information with the Microsoft Entra ID, which is then synchronized to the managed domain. Applications, services and VMs in Azure that connect to the managed domain can then use common Microsoft Entra Domain Services features such as domain join, group policy LDAP and Kerberos NTLM authentication. So it's like you have your Azure AD tenant. So Azure AD tenant with on-premises Microsoft is going to be two-way sync. So Azure AD connects the synchronization to the on-premises one. But when you go for this managed domain services, it will be a background. It's going to be a one-way sync. Like is Azure AD tenant is going to sync to your managed domain. So that's why he say you can create the resources directly in the managed domain, but they aren't synced back to the Entra ID. So it's the reverse syncing is not happening. It's a one-way synchronization from Microsoft Entra ID to the Microsoft Entra Domain Services.